Have we started the audio recording?
Good to go. If Donna is joining us, then I'll be able to see her.
Sure. She'll be, I think, joining us by audio only, is what she was saying.
Okay.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, welcome to the Wednesday, December 7th meeting, special meeting 1 week earlier of the Traffic Management Advisory Committee, December 7th, 7 p.m. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed and will be available on the Needham YouTube channel. It's also being audio recorded for the sake of the record of minutes. Just a roll call. Justin McCullen, Chair, I am here present. Rain Hoyland is absent. Tom Ryder is not here. Lieutenant McGrath. Here. Rebecca Tarantino. Here. Donna Mullen. Do we have one there? Yeah, no. Barry McNeely. No. Gus Drierson.
Present.
And Bob Chicola. Here. So we have 5 of 9 right now. So I record that as quorum. Yes. All right, so we can move. So excellent. So we're going to move to item number 2 on the agenda is to approve the minutes from November 9th, 2022. Have everyone gone through the minutes? I would like to make an addition, which I think you have already incorporated, which is the rescheduling of this meeting to be incorporated into the minutes, because otherwise it didn't actually reflect.
And it is. The vote was taken and it has been included as a item number 10 on your.
Perfect. All right. So we will just add that onto there. That's the only edits that I saw. Any other members of the committee have? No. Okay. Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the minutes with the amendment that we have? Motion accepted by Mr. Chicolo. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? The minutes pass. Efficiency. The status report. I know, Bob, actually, you weren't here last time, so we kind of Rain gave a little bit of a speak about some of the issues or the radar speed signage on Forest. But do you want to kind of bring us up to date on where we are?
There's a couple things. My name is Bob Wilson. Yeah, there was a couple things, mostly related to recent traffic counts that were performed. Continuing on with a little bit of the Countryway traffic count, which, by the way, we have the striping out right now. Okay. It is out. The main line section of Countryway has a speed of around 27 to 31, depending on which direction you're coming in. So it's right around 30. Like where it should be, basically. And there's about 1,000 vehicles on the main line, of which about 70% go right at the intersection where the fork is, and 30% go left. That's basically how the breakdown is.
Going from Central in.
Yeah, well, and then when you get all the way into the right-hand side fork. Okay. That's generally how
so most people break to the right.
Okay. Most people break to the right. Yeah. Okay. Moving on. Chestnut Street at Emerson Road has a speed of around 39 to 42 miles per hour. So it's going pretty quick through there. There's a volume of about 6,000, pretty much evenly split north and southbound. 3,000 each way or so, and about 9.5% trucks out there. So it's great. It's a good size thing. On my observation of the pedestrians in 1 hour, I noted 9 pedestrians crossing Chestnut Street between 7:30 and 8:30, along with 3 bikes. I did notice, I think it was Keith is his name, right? That at the bus stop on Lantern Lane at 8:20, 8:25-ish, there was around 20 people congregating at the stop. So a lot of people just kind of go there. It looks like more of a social meeting. I mean, there's 10 people, maybe 10 kids get on the bus there. But it's just a general place where everybody meets. That's just what it is. Has coffee and talks and whatever. The interesting thing, if I can say this, is there's a bus stop there. Okay. And there is a bus stop at Emerson Road and Emerson Place on the other side of Chestnut Street. So I'm beginning to wonder, why would they cross to go to the bus at one? I mean, that's because everybody's there, I guess. That rather than stay on their own side of Chestnut Street and take the bus.
Is the bus, is it both the same leg?
Same leg. I physically saw them stop at both stops.
So they stop going and they go one way and then come back the other way, or
they come up from the south, from Dover end.
Thank you.
And then turn left onto Emerson.
Okay.
And then make another stop at Emerson and Emerson Place.
So they loop down because Emerson.
Yeah, they loop down to Emerson and go back to High Rock. Yeah. It was a little strange. It looks to me, but again, the volume is not that much crossing. And that's the whole reason for
they're crossing where there's no crosswalk.
They're definitely crossing with no crosswalk.
Running
No,
across
right. Yeah. Yes.
And
It was kind of an interesting.
It was not really a good
place.
Right, because it's at both, like,
and it's 41 miles an hour. So.
Oh, they're moving. Yeah, and there's a lot of bad, you know, I mean, it's not like the safest road to cross. I get it, but I just wanted to run that by you guys. I thought that all the people were coming from Emerson, going to Lantern Lane across the street at that one stop, but apparently there is a stop on the Emerson side.
Which brings up the question of why they're crossing at all.
That was my.
If in fact that's accurate, I'm not saying
there was some. I mean, there was some.
Yeah, I'm just saying why I'm trying to figure that out.
Can I ask you a question? So also, let's say they are crossing because they prefer that stop for whatever reason. They also could wait for the bus to stop traffic and cross that, right?
Yeah.
So they could wait on the other side of Chestnut rather than.
I don't think there's a sidewalk there. That's the issue.
Oh,
so they're on just grass. I think if you're on people's properties, because I think the sidewalk ends. There is no sidewalk on the other side. There's a small strip that leads into. It's not Lantern. It's the one opposite. What's the
sidewalk to nowhere?
Well, no, it goes into the development, or it goes into the Emerson. Yeah. So there's a sidewalk, but then beyond from that intersection south, there's a sidewalk on the southbound side.
Bob, you said there was the other bus stop.
Right there, right where you're at.
Oh, it's the easiest point between. What do they say? It's a straight line. So it's easier to just come out of your house and go directly across the street than to walk over people's front yards to Emerson. It's just ease. Not ease crossing the street, but
you know,
just,
I get it.
Timing and.
So they're crossing at Lantern, you said, right?
They're crossing at Emerson.
Princeton,
yeah.
But it's people who live on Lantern, or the bus stops on Lantern too?
The bus stop is on Lantern at Chestnut, right where the arrow is there. That's exactly where it is. It was a little strange to me. I thought I would bring it up to the committee.
No, that's fine. I think with this, I think maybe we'll have a further discussion with the petitioner to kind of get some clarity, around this. I think just because I mean, unless anyone else has any.
Yeah, and if the crossing is the result of a preference and not necessity.
I think so, Bob. I think so. By my visual examination of it, I think so.
I will say, just my observation in general post-COVID is that bus stops are back to like what they were. Not even, you were talking about like 20 years ago, where because our people are working from home, I think a lot more parents are actually, they are enjoying the social time. I can see it on my own. We have one at Curve and Mark Tree. That was never a thing when my kids were there.
I agreed. I see the same thing. I'm, right at on Peacedale Road where it meets Sterling, and there'll be 15 people there.
Yeah,
that was like 20 people.
Yeah, it's coffee and dogs, even people with no kids.
Right.
Yeah,
exactly
seriously.
Yeah.
We determine where the speed change happens. Is it 35 there or is it 40? Is it 30? It's 40 coming in. It's 35.
It's 35. Yeah.
So it's not as egregious as
30.
30.
Correct. I believe it's
Okay,
posted 30, and yeah. I mean, we could verify with Google Maps, but I believe it's a 35-mile-an-hour posting. I think we talked about it last week or last month. We mentioned it.
On Chestnut?
On Chestnut, yeah.
Well, that's the sign that, right?
Right. We had added that flashing light, the school bus stop. So that's yes. There's no cross. So they're going. Kids would have to go walking across. That's fine.
Sure.
Yeah, no, that's what
It's definitely 30 after the bridge. I'm not sure.
Right.
Right.
And this is all Newman, right?
This is Newman, yeah.
But like, we're not hearing any issues about the Pollard.
35,
There's a sign.
Okay. 35. All right.
Yeah. What was that?
There are no issues with the Pollard. We're not hearing anything about the earlier hour, right? The Pollard High Rock.
I didn't see anything major at that locale. It was mostly for the 8:30.
So with regards to this specific issue, thank you, Bob, for the update.
There's more, but
Oh,
you go,
okay.
no, go ahead. You go, no,
You know, with this issue,
Yeah.
okay, then let's finish up the issue.
Oh no, this Chestnut Street, I'm done.
Oh, okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to see if the committee has anything that they want to do with regards to this. We have an option. We could bring the petitioner back next meeting, or we could make a motion. What do people feel?
Can you just reach out to the petitioner without bringing them? Can we ask them questions of just to get some clarity? Yeah.
So yeah, I'll get
So he came out every time I was out there. He was out when I put him out.
Yeah.
He was out and picked him up.
Yeah.
He was there.
So yeah, no, I'll talk to Keith and maybe we'll figure out what and I'll let him know what we found and figure out what's going from there. Is there any other comments,
But
concerns?
it's just the second time this particular bus stop, this particular location has come to us in the last like 4 or 5 months.
This has come up multiple times since I've been on the committee.
Yes, but like recently, this is the second for the bus stop and
Yes,
crossing.
I think
because
so,
Keith
yeah.
didn't bring it the first time. Someone
No,
else
it
did.
was somebody else. Correct.
So do you remember where we left the last issue? Because it was like the same bus stop, the same. I mean, I feel like we should. I wasn't here last meeting, so I can't speak to that particular issue, but it was the same issue with bus stops, Newman, crossing Chestnut, speeds on Chestnut. So I don't know what the answer is, but I don't remember where we landed, but I feel like it was like months ago, not years ago, that we just had this conversation. Do you remember?
I think there was like, it's vague, but nothing could be done because what they wanted was a crosswalk, and you could not build a crosswalk where there wasn't another sidewalk. So then it ended up like there was not, it was one of those where Tony, it was.
So was this a bus routes issue? Like where maybe am I remembering that was the case, is that is there an opportunity for us to have a much more robust conversation with transportation about, given that this has come before us 3 or 4 times, specific to that area, Newman bus route.
And others too.
Yeah.
As well with that. High Street, yeah. Or
but it feels like if the crossing Chestnut is the problem in that location for the Newman bus stop, and it's come before us that many times, maybe the opportunity is for us to figure out how do we get transportation involved to say this is something that is like, this is a critical issue that we need to work together to solve. Is that?
Yeah, we could definitely reach out to transportation and see what we can do and kind of come together. Yeah. Any other comments? Yeah, well, maybe we'll reach out. You and I will we'll talk to Shane. Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Perfect. And I'll circle back with Keith and we'll report back in January with that. So, so Bob, Next.
Okay, two more.
Yeah,
I sent you guys.
I know you did.
Unfortunately, with Spring Road, the speeds were 27, 23, right around 25 miles per hour, which is under the speed limit. The volume, 118 vehicles per day. So there was a few, the percentage of trucks was high, but that's maybe because the general volume is very low. It might be landscapers, who knows what else. So yes, the volume is extremely low and the speeds are not excessive, even though they might seem excessive to the petitioner.
Yeah.
When was the peak?
I have it. I don't have it right now.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, he was discussing a particular hour of the day.
There was a peak on that road. Yes, there was. It was between 2:45 and 3:15, I believe, on only one of the days, though. It wasn't throughout the week. So I don't know quite what might have been happening. I have ideas what might have been happening, but
We had a construction detail up in that area, we sort of sent traffic potentially down.
okay. No, okay, that makes a whole lot more sense.
Built up on the main.
No.
That's
I'm glad
exactly
we
what I
just-
heard.
We
Thank
just
you,
managed.
thank you, John.
No, the volume was really, honestly.
So it's good to know that the 85th percentile was below what
Yeah.
the statutory
Yeah.
limit is.
Okay. Now we go on to Mark Tree Road. The daily volume, about 3,300 vehicles a day. Okay, again, pretty evenly split. You can know that more than
I
me.
feel everyone.
And then the speeds are right around 35 miles per hour out there.
Is it
Going
different
down the
going
hill.
the other direction?
No,
No
very
difference.
similar. Strangely similar, both even uphill and downhill. Doesn't matter.
And remind me where the markers, I should know this, but
One knows.
it's in the middle of the hill, right?
Yes, and no. Right in the middle.
Yeah, it was
Right
35.
at the sharp corner, really.
Yeah.
Southbound was
Brick walls.
35. Northbound was 34.
Oh, yeah. He's cheating over there.
Mhm.
Okay. So I know those are pretty high. I don't know.
Where did we land on the slope, the slope curve, because there's a slope curve heading up?
We did
Clearly it's not
motion
working.
Yeah.
that we would do a sign as well.
I just want to find out what the,
Okay.
Yep.
Why, I mean, the speed was. Set that up.
They put out, there are a bunch of homemade signs now.
Yes, and
Tons,
I saw some.
tons.
yes,
I saw some.
which I think, so they were tested though with those signs. Not that those signs really did anything, but I think that,
That may be part of.
they could have
Coming out.
dramatically dropped, by 1 or 2 miles an hour.
I do think, look, at the reality, I've said this before, but the reality is when you live on a busy street, you and your children have to learn how and where to safely cross the street. And the good news is that I do feel like they learn, and then your children are safe street crossers everywhere. But it's a hard reality when the kids are small.
Right.
So
Right.
the petitioner's house is in a tough spot because their driveway is in the worst possible
That is a
spot.
tough-
in
it
the
is.
entire
That is a
It
tough corner.
It was a terrible place for the driveway to be put.
Yeah.
But it's okay. I think that, that this, maybe when is the road construction supposed to happen, Tom? Do you remember when is Mark Tree on? It's soon, right?
Yeah, that's on Ryan's list. We are taking care of one section. I think it's on his list for, it's over the next several years. I mean, he's been talking about it for years.
I was gonna say, I think it was,
yeah.
last time we talked was not several years. It was
Yeah.
supposed to be this year.
Yeah, I can't
Yeah.
commit to saying it's gonna be next year because I think he's
Okay.
kind of still
Yeah.
narrowing in the
Okay.
the 5-year plan. So
Okay.
it's in the 5-year. I was gonna say it's in the 5-year plan. Where it is, I'm not sure what year it's at.
I think I've lived in my house for 22 years. I think it's been on the 5-year plan for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we need a new water main. So it's right.
Yeah.
So it's
Okay, so yeah, so what is the feedback then? Do we owe the petitioner anything in this case, or?
Well, I think at this point, we want to go forward with what we voted on before now is the sign.
Sign.
The
And
curb
now we
sign.
can put whatever, rules have.
We also said that the street may reach some sort of criteria for a radar speed sign. which we can talk later tonight, because I do have some criteria that we can perhaps adopt. And, the town will need to kind of adopt that criteria because of, we had mentioned last time is we may have some funding to do radar speed signage, and everyone and their mother is going to want these radar signs, and they cost, $6,000.
I think we discussed moving, we have one that from the forestry.
Right.
That is not working there. So
correct. Because we had to.
We have a location picked out.
I think, and I think this is a candidate. There's also a couple of roads that I know are candidates as well, but perhaps we can, after we go over the criteria and see, because I think it does match, especially with this study going through.
There was also the grade issue too, wasn't there?
There was a grade issue as well. Yes, that's true. Yes. So I think the next step for them would be a potentially a radar speed signs that we mentioned, but I also told them that we would hold off on that until we as a committee worked out with DPW and highway the criteria for those, because those could just go out, suddenly you could spend $100,000 on speed and you'd have flashing lights everywhere in town.
Be Las Vegas.
Right, and it would. But I think that's the next step after this, but I think going forward, having a slow down with actual curve sign.
There's one going one way, well,
is
going
just
the other
the
way.
other way. Yeah. So, okay.
That's
Perfect.
That's it, I think,
Thank
for
you.
me.
Any other questions for Bob regarding the status report or any other issues that we've discussed thus so far?
I have one quick question back to country. I'm just surprised at the number. Given Mark Tree 3,000, Country Way is 1,000. I'm surprised Country Way is a third of Mark Tree, given that Mark Tree is a cut through and Country is. I just would have thought it was more of a residential street, so I'm just surprised at the numbers and the speed given the street. So I'm not sure that there's a inflection. I don't have a suggestion, but I wonder if everyone thinks about it as a small residential street, but clearly there's a lot more traffic happening there than we realize.
When I looked at the data, I said the same kind of thing. Then I kind of
That's
looked at the
not,
bigger picture. There's a lot of little.
Right. Well, so now that you said 6,000 on Chestnut, 3,000 on Mark Tree, and 1,000 on Country, that puts it into perspective. I wouldn't have expected Country to be a third of Mark Tree.
Right. And 11% of what's going on Country Way is trucks.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Just landscape or
That's
whatever.
That's interesting. Yeah. So I just wonder, given how wide it is, and given the issues with the, I know we're making changes to the triangle there to make the stop sign better, and there are no sidewalks, so it's complicated.
It is. It is. I love it. Yeah.
It does seem though that the speeds are reasonable, 27 to 31.
It's right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
the general group of people seem to treat it like it's a residential neighborhood. Even though 31 can seem fast.
I remember the petitioner had said that there was one individual that was like,
Yes.
50. So the
Well, that could be above the
85th
85%,
percentile is
that's
not going to pick that up.
No.
That's going to be
Well, and the going for strolls and walking down the street, which is part of the conversation.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
But it is interesting with regards to that being busier than I would have thought.
One of the things, just to comment on it, that sort of a similarity to my neighborhood with the Valley is, because I know at some point they did a traffic study down on Peacedale, and one of the things is the perception of speed increases because they're accelerating up the slope. So their top speed is still only 31, 32 miles an hour, but it's accelerating and the sound of the engine and everything. So it's sort of this whole sensory experience that makes it feel faster sometimes than the actual measurement.
Yeah.
All right. Unless there's anything else regarding the status report, we're going to move on to item number 4, safety concern at intersection of Nohoyden and Meadowbrook Parish Streets. Andrea? Was it Putnam?
Oklahoma Putnam.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. My apologies. You have the floor. We have your petitions that you submitted, but you certainly are able to.
Yes, thanks for bringing that up, the picture. So, I mean,
So
The reason that I'm here today specifically, yeah, and I just screenshotted that off of Google Maps actually, so maybe you want to show the Google map.
Okay.
I got the email to come here yesterday, so I didn't have time to go and like take pictures.
There was some confusion with regards to meeting date. My apologies about that.
Well, just conveniently, I was free tonight.
Yes.
Right. So the reason I'm here today is because I like personally had a near-death experience in this intersection a couple of weeks ago. But I think in general, what we want to talk about is kind of how on a daily basis, this intersection is confusing and it's particularly dangerous for pedestrians. This crossing here, crossing Nahoyden Street, is very treacherous for pedestrians because right now there's a stop sign at the end of Meadowbrook, which is a neighborhood, but it's a large neighborhood. There are a lot of houses back there, and a lot of children. And then on Paris Street, there's a stop sign, and there's nothing to control, the traffic stopping or going on Nahoyden Street. And I think that the real issue at hand is that a stop sign is not really enough when you consider that Paris Street and Rosemary Street, which feeds into it right there, are both highly trafficked thoroughfares, right? They're not little neighborhood roads. They're not Meadowbrook, right? So there's a lot of traffic coming down Parish and coming down Rosemary, trying to get places. Most of them are turning left onto Nahoyden Street because if you were going to go right, there's a slip lane, right? So they're pretty much all turning left, right into where that crosswalk is. But because the traffic on Nahoyden doesn't stop, and there's a fair amount of that traffic going back and forth, the people who are like that silver car there, for instance, right? You're waiting on Parish to go. You're like looking left, you're looking right. It takes you a lot of time to find an opportunity to gun it into that left turn. And that was how I almost was hit with my two children because we were crossing that crosswalk and someone decided to gun it left. And they're like, oh, there's a person here. And honestly, I think that their car had like that feature where it stops for you because I'm not sure how they would have seen us and hit the brakes at the same time. So I don't think a stop sign is enough there, basically. I think there's enough traffic at this intersection. And I think that obviously I don't know what the traffic counts are, but I suspect if you did a traffic study, you would find that the traffic coming in from the combination of Rosemary and Paris Street is a lot closer to what's going up and down Nahoyden Street than would be warranted by having Nahoyden have this priority. And I think that a traffic light there with a pedestrian walk light would be much safer.
Can you turn it around the other way?
Yeah, and I think that kind of an additional issue that happens here is that you can sort of see it. There are some triangle markings on the road on Nahoyden Street over there.
Yep.
So drivers will stop there thinking it's a stop line. And that was what happened the day that we had the problem. But the driver stopped in Nahoyden that isn't supposed to be stopped and isn't turning left and no one knows what's going on. The driver stopped on Paris and they're like, what are you doing? And so these drivers are negotiating with each other and they're not looking over here at the crosswalk, right?
There's also a visibility problem. So when you're in where we are right now, the car, that car has trouble seeing to the right. In order for them to go left.
Looking back over your right shoulder.
It's very hard to see cars coming down Nahoyden when you're at that stop sign. So at the town level, have we looked at this particular intersection?
Only last time it came up, maybe a couple of years ago.
That's when we put the triangles and put a new sign.
Which are standard signs. I mean, the triangles are actually
And the sign.
and the side. Those are all governed. Those are all supposedly is that's not supposed to look like a stop line. But I understand people are making that assumption. But those triangles are yielding or they're alerting you of a crosswalk, and essentially that's a federally.
Now we moved to Needham last year, but I've been told by neighbors that the reason this came up a couple of years ago is that there was a woman walking her dog who was struck by a car and the dog was killed and the woman was sent to the hospital. And I don't actually know which of these crosswalks she was in.
She was in the one I was actually at that call.
Yeah.
She was in the crosswalk that you've described.
Crossing Nahoyden.
crossing.
Yeah, it's terrible because
The-
the cars are turning, they're gunning it left and they're trying to look over here to make sure they don't get hit by another car and they don't see what's going.
This particular one was a pickup truck, and we believe the people crossing were in the A pillar of the truck. So they were trying to look right at oncoming traffic, and as they were making the turn, the people were halfway through the crosswalk and were both in the blind spot in the A pillar.
Yep.
And that's the catalyst for that.
Yeah, and the vehicle that nearly hit me and my children was like
Sounds
a
similar.
tall SUV. Like, honestly, my head came up a year on the hood. Like, if it had been my kid, she wouldn't have seen them at all, and she would have just blown right through them.
So has there been given any thought at all, and I don't know, how far back the institutional memory goes, but the entire little park triangle area is this very overly complicated crisscross thing. I don't know that a traffic light would be appropriate so close to those other intersections. I mean, it's just kind of not non-standard, if you will, to have uncontrolled intersections and then a light. But whether or not, I mean, it'd be a long-term planning thing.
A roundabout of some sort.
Yeah, wasn't that brought up before? I think
That's why I'm asking. I feel like
I think it was.
Yeah, it's
I feel
yeah, I know it's against my back, but it's either a roundabout or four-way stop. And the question is, I know the four-way stop is it's a taboo subject, but if any, this is the spot that if there were a place in this town that would be well suited to, that would, I mean, it's the right place for it. Otherwise, it's almost like you got to get rid of that crosswalk, because the crosswalk gives people a false sense of security.
Sure, and when I was giving you that look, I'm not against a four-way stop.
No,
however, and we do have accident history that we can use as for warrant collection, because on at the face, the issue is a stop sign is not actually meant to control speed. It's not designed to control speed. It's not an appropriate device or control used to slow down. It's only,
I don't think speed's the problem.
But it's only used to show right of way, which is when. So I know in the actual petition itself, we're talking about speed. So that's why the couple different petitions. There are other ways that there's a number of criteria, one of which is accident history. So we can kind of use that potentially as something that would potentially give us leverage when we're going to warrant, see if it actually meets the warrant for a four-way stop.
Because
the trouble we might have is the severity of the incident might not meet the amount of crashes. So
sure,
I don't know. And the other instance might be, we might have a couple crashes in this intersection, but all listed differently, because it'll come in as Nahoyden at Parish at Rosemary. So the data will show. Yeah,
right.
But I guess but I don't know if that meets the warrant, because you could have 5 crashes Parish at Nahoyden, but it doesn't meet the requirement for Nahoyden Parish because it didn't happen in that intersection.
So I also think that, and I want to give Bob, who's our technical consultant, to be able to kind of give his take on this. But if in fact we need to figure out, because it clearly states that if there's a two-way stop sign right now and you move to a four-way stop sign, you have to say that the traffic volume in both directions has to be nearly equivalent, balanced. So I mean, yeah, it's the rest of it. So that's where so that's traffic coming off Meadowbrook is probably almost not, I shouldn't say non-existent, but significantly less, but you're going to have more coming.
It's really
from
about
Rosemary,
Parish and Rosemary. Yeah, I mean,
right.
Meadowbrook. I mean, there are a bunch of houses there, and you can get through to Great Falls.
So I do have a question. What if, can we turn back to this, where that car is?
Yeah.
What if the whole thing was reconfigured so that traffic coming down Parish Road was forced to make the right to go out to Nahoyden and then
turn
left?
left over there.
Mr. Chair. So I talked to Reinhard Hoyland, our superintendent of highway, about this particular area.
Yep.
This lane here is meant to align with this roads because if a truck is coming down this way and had to turn right, left here, the angle would be too severe to make that turn easily or safely. Because otherwise, which complicates the fact that, because his initial instinct was to eliminate this lane here, which would make it so that traffic coming down this way would have to stop at this intersection here to turn right, which eliminates the number of different crossings that can happen, make things more predictable. However, the truck issue remains. So in order to accommodate that, this corner would have to be pulled in to allow for the truck to make the turn. However, this pole presents a problem because it would take some considerable negotiation with utility, as well as it would have to be decided who would pay for the relocation. So I mean, overall, I think that Bob is right in the sense that this island here is not really working. This configuration is not really working. However, these two poles here present a challenge because we would have to figure out how to relocate them in a way that that makes sense, but got it out of the way of this slog jam here. So
it's almost like you shouldn't be able to turn left there.
So
but the numbers
coming
should
from
be,
Rosemary?
but
Yeah,
the numbers should be fairly small. I mean, coming from there and then going back west.
No, if you're coming down
Come east.
Parish Street.
I don't think
it's turning right. So
Yeah.
trucks coming here and then turning right.
Well, no, that's what that.
When did we reconstruct this? Was it 2003, Bob? Or
2, 3, yeah, 20 years.
20 years?
If I could, and God help me, I'm talking about cutting down a tree.
No, I'm with
Okay.
you. The tree is what
If you
presents.
eliminated both of
visibility
those, left and right, and put the road straight through the middle and made it a 90-degree T, right in between those two poles.
Yes.
The poles stay right where they are.
Then
And
you don't like the intersection.
well, like I said, there's some engineering involved, but either way, they're not
Is
going
it
to be.
something-
There's a long-term fix for this, which I think is.
Is this something the transportation committee that starting up?
I mean, that could be, well.
This is something like we're looking at doing master planning.
Yeah.
And not just for like stormwater,
Mhm.
but also for intersection improvements.
Yep.
Like something like this. Seems like a.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
more
the
of a-
committee would then be able to give the,
This is more of a
to
capital.
give the prioritization, of those projects, so that, yes, this is 8 years away, this is 4 years away, this is 7 years away, and be able to provide, that's the, but it wouldn't have, operational control. You know what I mean? It would, but to be able to provide that prioritization for those
for
and development of the master plan, then yeah.
The other thing Ryan had suggested that without more data on this traffic pattern, it's hard to determine what makes the most sense. So it may be our best move to start off, may be to just collect data about how many cars are going in each direction, what is, just observation. So without that information, it's tough to tell.
Yeah, I mean,
How
that's.
many people would we need to do that?
No, let's start with this. Based on 2018 data, the actual amount of traffic on Nahoyden Street, near May Street, but it's relatively close, is about 6,000 vehicles a day, 6,300.
So it's the same as Chestnut.
Same as Chestnut, yeah,
That's
in
big.
that area.
That's big.
Yeah,
So,
they're traveling a little slower, but traveling about 33 miles an hour or so.
I mean, these are cut throughs too. Like, this is how, that's the issue, is that people do come down there and then turn left, come from Rosemary, turn left on, or from Parish, and
Don't
turn
forget,
left on the
I
highway.
don't want to deal
I
with
do it
Central.
all the time.
I do that to get to our
That's how I
house.
get home. Me
Yeah.
too.
Anyways,
It's like, it is, so the question I have in the short term is the crosswalk visibility problem.
Yeah.
So traffic patterns, this is clearly an intersection that needs attention. But how do we address the crosswalk visibility problem in the meantime?
I mean, we can, there are signs, we did just put one up in off Central that are, yield to pedestrians in, when taking left or right, those like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just as reminder
Right,
tabs that you
yeah,
can put
exactly.
underneath the stop, just to say, when taking left, yield to pedestrians and crosswalk. We did that on Central, taking a right onto Great Plain.
So what about just the more visibility?
We could, the Continentals,
Yeah.
the Continental, I would definitely push for doing the Continentals. I don't think that could be done until spring, but yeah,
But
because that's just from a paving.
Those are the sideways stripes.
Those are the
Yeah.
stripes, yeah, that's
Right,
what
yeah,
they're
yeah.
adopting.
Because they
those.
just did that further down the street.
Yes,
Yeah.
they did, correct.
So
They
the
did.
other crosswalk was also treacherous.
Correct, yes, yes.
I think the other thing too is just, as a parent, is also just to remember, like, right now, we have a driving problem in this town. And so that you can just to be extra careful when you're in, assume that drivers are not being safe.
Is that a flash?
Because it's a problem.
Yes,
It just is.
I mean, the case when we were crossing the street a couple of days ago, there were two cars in the intersection. They were both at a complete stop. And they had been at a complete stop for a while, at the point that we started crossing. Right. What I didn't realize was that they were both looking at each other, right, negotiating who was gonna go first and not looking where their car was moving.
It's really, it's challenging.
So Bob,
And
how,
as the lieutenant said, the A-pillar issue, I don't know, what sort of a vehicle you drive, but some have the larger, thicker
Yeah,
A-pillar
it
that holds
hampers
where
the
the driver's mirror
visibility.
is. And there is an exact angle at which the pedestrian fits, and you can't see them. And that seems to be the exact angle.
So do we have a record? Do we have a record of accident? Now, the lieutenant mentioned that you have a record of incidents, but do you, in other words, that I'm driving to is, do you have a collision diagram? Can you develop a collision diagram that showing a picture of what really happened at the intersection over, let's say, 2-3 years?
Together, how many reported accidents at that location?
Yeah, but it is also important to see what the accidents were.
If
I
it
mean,
was
if you just
over,
get, if you get like T-bones or you get, but different types of accidents, give an idea of what kind of things are happening.
if it was over $1,000 and reported to the state diagrams, they'll have historical data as to the diagram that
Yes.
law enforcement submitted to them.
Is that worthwhile to get? I mean, I don't know if that helps you to get these.
My daughter got in an accident there. She got T-boned. She was taking a left on a parish and from the Hoyden.
Really?
Yeah. She came over the hill and just went right into her.
Now, the other question I have with this still, from what I understand is, I recall, is that the shark teeth, I thought they're only correlate with yield sign. What was the purpose? Have an idea what the purpose of those shark teeth were? Because you don't see those as a stop condition.
Right, like a yield condition, right? So
Yeah, and that's
well, it's the yield in the crosswalk is what it is what it's.
yield for a crosswalk.
That's what we're using the shark teeth across the,
Really?
across.
usually you see it in roundabouts.
Yeah,
where-
sure.
where-
Oh, yeah, but then
as
you
come
have
in
you have two moving flows. You do, but one is advised to stop or be able to stop. But okay, anyway.
That's what we've seen.
That's
you'll
how
see
that's
that
what
every time.
we've been using those.
The only immediate fix I could see, other than redesigning this, and feel free to disagree with me, what if we did paint to force, like the dash lines, Tom, to show
Oh, the turn movement.
the turning movement? Not that it would cut down the A-pillar problem, but I don't know if people are trying to cut the corner sideways. I just don't see too many temporary fixes other than a redesign.
I think that's probably a good idea.
So I think
At least give them the idea of a 190-degree turn. Rather
Yeah,
than,
because
yeah,
even in one of those
cutting it.
photos, you saw the car coming, avoid it and cut
because it's
left.
It's not, yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it will force that, like, is a stop line a, is there a fixed measurement that a stop line needs to be? Like,
Yeah,
is it-
well, depends on the width
It's
of the road,
regulation. I just didn't know if you shorten the stop line a little bit and then draw a line, so it almost gives the appearance the vehicle has a shorter lane to deal with, and
Yeah, I'd have to see it too.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, we have to look that up. I know that there are, because there's federal vehicle code as well, that's part of that. But yeah, we'd have to research that. But I see what you're saying. I would also suggest first that we make a motion to do a complete data set of that intersection. I know there's probably going to be some resource issues on your side, because I think we need to hit Nahoyden. I think we need to have the entire intersection kind of, at least data from that. Is that something that's doable in-house, or do we contract out?
No, that would be available, yes. But what I was getting at, I think from Brian and through Tyler, is that they not only want to know, okay, it's 1,000 vehicles per day on this road. They want to know where those vehicles are going by turning, which involves a whole different dynamic as far as traffic study goes.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I was asking how many people.
Well,
will it take.
yeah, I mean,
'Cause you have to be able to-
that's not a one
in-house.
person.
Or-
Well, no, it can be, but it's
Bob
not
could-
definitely
Bob
not
could
a
do
one.
All right.
No, it's
Bob
not,
can
no,
do
but.
anything.
I can do the mail.
Oh,
Don't
yeah.
you know that?
Yes,
No, it's, yeah, no, that's a complex. You'd almost have to look in 3 different places at once, because there could be a vehicle turning on the one road and then continuing turning on the other road. It's not like it's a simple 4-way or approach intersection.
Right.
So it'll take a little.
But is that something that you could do?
It can be done. It can be
Okay.
done. And I don't know if this committee wants it done that way or the 2-way for this particular issue.
I don't think this is a tube thing. I think this is.
Yeah, well, this also,
That's
I
why-
think
that's
this
what I
study then is going to feed into a longer term fix, but also a short, we need to know what the usage of that road is, like, and where people are going and how many people are going. So I also think that we could maybe see if as an interim, does it meet the criteria for a 4-way stop? Or later on, does it meet the criteria for signal improvement and actually do a signal there?
Can we also, are we allowed to use other towns as precedent for 4-way stops? Like, are we allowed to say, okay, that, look at other intersections in other neighboring communities that have a situation where there's, the unequal traffic situation where you've got one thoroughfare, but you have a stop sign in other places. Huh?
So
I
aren't
do
there
homes
spec-
that way every day.
aren't there specific warrants for 4-way stops?
Yes.
There are.
So, I mean, we should have those.
So so I'm just trying to figure out what kind of, I don't want to do overkill if we don't need to do it, but I think we do need to do a comprehensive engineering study to figure out where cars are going, how fast they're going, how many cars are there, also how many pedestrians are crossing. Does anyone else have a comment on that, or?
Part and parcel it and start smaller, so the first speed on Nahoyden.
Yep.
Coupled with how many left-hand turns are there from Parish to Nahoyden?
Yeah, I think that's the majority.
It stops there for the time being.
Yeah, that's if you're wanting to prioritize, then yes, that's probably the most important.
So I guess am I turning that to a motion?
Is it-
I'll make a motion to study the speed on Nahoyden and the left-hand turns from Parish to Nahoyden.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion, there's a second. Is there discussion on the motion on the floor?
Can I have my collisions in there? Collision diagram in there? Just ask information, is this,
Bob, this is you.
Is this against town policy? I know it doesn't look very well in the winter.
We can hit them all the time. This is
All
the
those-
stanchions. These are the stanchions.
Oh,
So you know it's a-
I don't know what the policy is. I mean, I understand that you can take them out in the winter.
We haven't set those up yet.
Do you use them?
Oh, yeah, we do have,
Yield to pedestrians in the
we do have them in the
Yeah,
crosswalks.
We pulled it from Great Plains. We
Yeah,
just pop it there in the meantime. It's a good point.
My only
Except
fear
in
of
the
that
winter
is
time,
you're
yeah.
gonna have that A-pillar.
It's going to be waxed. Yeah, no, and
Well-
that's not like,
Go ahead.
Go
But
ahead.
that would only be in the Hoyden, probably not on the turning lane, because then you, then you really have a problem probably with all the turns. You probably have to put it on the, I say that, towards the intersection, not on both sides, because otherwise you get them clipped every time by every vehicle going down.
so let's hold off on this. So we do have a motion on the table to do a study, both for speed
Left turn.
and left turn. Thank you. It was seconded. Is there any discussion on that? No discussion be had. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? The abstentions? Motion passes. So we'll do an initial study to get some data. Also, I want the record to show that Donna actually is online. Just she's there. So
I tried to bring her on the panels.
okay.
She's listening.
All right. So maybe just and then let me see. So we have that motion. In terms of better signage in the immediacy before we do that, is there something? Obviously, there's some concerns over a pedestrian stanchion and where that could be, because that would be everyone taking a left is going to hit that.
And every truck is not going to be able to do that turn.
Can we start with the changing the lines for the sidewalk. Contrast with crosswalk.
Yeah, we could
In the spring.
in the spring. Yeah, though. I mean, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely have that slated for. Do we need to do a motion for that, Bob, or not? Or is that something that we want to? We'll get you to do it, or I mean, does that get?
Does that get you to do it?
Do we need to do a motion for that?
Do that, so it'll be a part of the record.
Perfect.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to turn actually, can we do it for all the cross? If we're gonna do it for one, we should do it for all of them in that intersection, no?
Yeah, that's our new
Trans-
standard
Yeah,
to
so
do.
so I'd like to make a motion to convert the crosswalks at Nahoyden, Rosemary, and Parish into Continental crosswalks.
Any discussion? We have a motion for Continentals. It's been seconded by Bob. Any discussion?
Just the timing of the painting. We did have issues with the contractor coming into town. All the towns surrounding had issues. They started coming in towards the fall, but depends on what type of paint we're going to be putting on the ground. Epoxy will not adhere during the cold weather conditions. So I'm not sure of the timing. You would see it right away.
Okay.
But I leave that up to Ryan to
Okay.
figure that one out.
And that's fine. I think we were all thinking this wouldn't happen until the spring anyways.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right. Noted. All in favor, please say aye. Any
There's also
opposed?
a crosswalk across Meadowbrook in that area.
No, we'll do it.
And
Yeah, the whole-
no, this is now
whole-
encompassing all those
You want to
crosswalks.
include
Medical as well.
Meadowbrook as well?
Yes.
All right.
This is our new standard, so we might as well
So,
pick
okay.
it all up.
So the Continentals and all of them. Oh, aye. Everyone said aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion passes with that. I also wanted to, maybe we did start to use this, but we did use it and we installed it at we installed this at Central and Great Plain.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know where the proper placement would be, of whether you put it underneath the stop sign at the end of Parish, you know what I mean, or whether you needs to be, you know, I don't know, but I think it's an appropriate either one of these, the fluorescent or this, to at least alert that there's a crosswalk there and you have to yield to pedestrians in that crosswalk. What do we think of that?
Worth a try. You're too busy.
I just, I just worry about, I think it's I think it's fine, but I worry about how much we're expecting drivers at that stop sign to pay attention to, because it's a very, you know what I mean? Like yes, you have to yield to pedestrians in the crosswalk, but is that the right place for the crosswalk in the first place? Because I do feel like every time I am turning left there are so many variables to pay attention to. So, I mean, they have to pay attention to the crosswalk. So I guess telling them fine, but.
I mean, that's another thing too, is to remove the crosswalk and move it somewhere else, or figure out another way to put a crosswalk.
I think that in an ideal, like ultimately it would be so much better to have a crosswalk on the other side. You've got the triangle issue, so I don't know how you solve that, but the cross, almost like it's almost like I think it would be better if it functioned more like Harris and Dedham, where now the crosswalk goes through the triangle to the other side.
Oh, right.
Do you know what I mean? So
you turn the triangle into a
yeah.
refuge area.
You hate that one?
Yeah,
you were here. We're still struggling with that one.
Oh, no, everyone is. I mean, I was the one, I texted Justin when someone clearly had driven over the triangle.
Oh, yeah.
So
you and about 15 of us.
Yeah, I get that. But I still feel like the placement, I don't think it would hurt pedestrians at all to move the crosswalk to the opposite side of Meadowbrook. But
I don't know, we have to take a look and see whether, because we're actually, you can't put a crosswalk into dirt. And you know what I mean? I don't know if there's a.
it's the same.
Yeah,
so
there's no sidewalk on the other side.
Right.
For 2 houses, there's no sidewalk, and then the sidewalk resumes. I have no idea why there's 2 houses length of no sidewalk. I walk there anyway.
So
in any case,
The right of way is only 33 feet wide. It's, yeah.
So putting the sign there is fine, but I just worry if there's a lot.
The trouble with removing the crosswalk is like we have a crossing guard there because it's a walking route to Sunita and Rosemary Pool.
And the library.
Not that to make you walk to Rosemary Pool.
We walk to the pool, we walk to the library all the time.
It is a convenience.
no,
If you removed it, there'd have to be a replacement.
I think that could be rolled up into any long-term geometric improvements that we do to that whole intersection, whether that's a rotary, whether, you know what I mean? Whatever long-term thing, we'll be figuring out how to get pedestrians across that area. But to your point, I think a signage this is a blind crosswalk right now. It is, so I think from at least from the 2 directions it's signed, but not from that left-hand direction coming off. So
yes,
that was just a suggestion on that.
I think it's fine. I think the reality is it is there and they need to be careful and we need to tell them to be careful.
So I make a motion to have a turning vehicles yielded to pedestrians sign placed on the stop sign. So it doesn't need to have the Christmas lights around it, with the blinking reds. Sorry, second. From Lieutenant, any discussion on the matter? Hearing none, a call to a vote. It was I moved.
Oh,
and yeah. Move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. So I think with these 3 things that we've done, I think we'll start the process of trying to improve that area. We can't change things overnight. Obviously, we'll do that. But we recognize this is a challenging intersection. And this road, along with a lot of these roads, are because of Waze and Google, and everyone is now forwarding. There's now traffic ahead. So now take a left here. It'll take 5 minutes off your total time to your destination. We're getting a lot of that. That's why a lot of these secondary and tertiary roads are getting used a lot more, is because of Waze and Google Maps, etc. So
yeah, and that crossing is also like, there are many children in the neighborhood in the Meadowbrook area, right? Like my children go to Sunita Williams, and they take the bus there, they walk there.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I think, so this data that we're going to collect will basically help us to be able to look to see if we could meet the warrants for any additional, controls. So, whether that be a 4-way stop sign or not, at least in order to do that, you have to establish data. So this data is the first step to that. So, okay. I think we are. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. We So let's see here. Parking during school hours on Holland Street. Miss Suzanne Kelly. Please. Floor is yours. Kelly, the floor is yours.
Okay. You guys all have a copy of.
We've read the book. Yes. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Pictures for you. Pull up anything that you need for any sort of images on there, which.
Talking about this.
Right. Okay. I was just orienting. It's never been an issue before, and I'm talking pre-COVID, I guess, because for 2 years there wasn't much high school traffic anyway. So it just really started this year. And Holland Street's one of the latter streets. Like there's Brookline, Lindbergh. They all have signage that says during school hours. I mean, I looked today, they're different, but they basically say from September to June, it's either 1 hour parking or no parking between the hours of 8 and 3. It's something like that, you know. But Holland Street doesn't have anything. Pre-COVID, nobody parked there. They prevented parents from coming. It was a huge drop off. It's a very short street. It only goes to, it's Webster to Manning. So it's really short and it's narrow. Now, the other day, I literally couldn't park on Holland Street because there were so many vehicles that were not resident cars. I couldn't park. Our driveway is small. Most of the driveways are short. You can fit two cars next to each other, whatever. So if you have visitors, service people, landscapers, whatever, we've had complaints because they can't park, they can't come in service at, our home for sure. And I've talked to a few neighbors. I brought this myself because I just thought, I don't know, I just decided that when I couldn't park twice in the middle of the day, I mean, I'm fine leaving, but then during the day, I come back at 11:30 and I literally can't park because there's only parking on one side of the street as it is. So you can only park on the side.
Because there's already a parking prohibition on the other side.
On the other side, there's no parking.
Right.
So all the cars are parking between Manning and Webster. And I'm not going to say they're all students because I don't know that they could be adults or subs or people visiting the high school. I really don't know what the situation is there. But being such a short street, we've had issues that I'm explaining now. There's just no place for our washing machine breaks and we need a service person. Many days.
They're vacant vehicles. There's nobody in them. They're not standing waiting for somebody or something.
Quite a few of the vehicles. And I had spoken to Tyler yesterday and I did take a picture today. Of course, it was a half a day. So, but I did try to take a picture this morning and it was, this side of the street. Our house is actually the middle one. There's Holland Court. Yeah, well, that's right there is.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's a dead end.
Mm-hmm.
And we're actually the house right here in the middle. If you came out of Holland Court, you hit our house. So that's our house right there with the green one. So the cars literally park from Manning all the way down to Webster. Many of them I know are students because I've seen the vehicles. We've seen the kids get out. And the other thing they do is they park in the middle of what could have been 2 spaces in between 2 driveways. They just pull up the wrong way and they park right there, wrong way, right way. They come. So the cars are parked in both directions. And I don't know.
See it right there.
Yeah, well, this car right here is parked the wrong way. I don't care about that.
It's probably before my time what the historical context is of why Holland wasn't done when the others were. Because Holland's closer to the school than LaSalle and Lindbergh.
And Brookline.
I don't know.
It's
Brookline's
and
too
Lindbergh.
busy. I feel like that people wouldn't necessarily park on there just because of the curbing.
Right.
But what,
I,
is there a
I-
reason Holland was left off that?
I don't know.
I mean,
Well,
they're,
one
and it-
side, one side is
One
done.
side
is
was
done.
done.
One side is
right.
down.
One side, so the side, the side that's no parking is no parking, period.
it's just no
No parking,
parking,
8 to
period.
4. No, it says 8 to
No,
4.
Oh, it does.
It says
yeah,
Monday through Friday, 8 to 4.
Right.
On the
So-
north side, right.
So because the problem is if we do it on your side too, then you can't park there either.
Well, that's a question that I had on my little paper. So if we put signage up, or if signage is put up, how do we designate,
You can't.
you know?
Can't.
You can't.
You
It's
have to
it's
abide
all or
by the
none.
same thing.
So that generally, that's why for parking prohibitions, we've always said that the town won't, we as a committee won't make the recommendation to the select board to vote on a regulatory parking change, because that's really what happens. It's a regulation change that has to be done by the select board. But nonetheless, we wouldn't recommend if we don't get all 100% of people on the street saying it's okay to do so, because that means that all of your guests and you, no one will be able to park between Monday through Friday, 8 to 4. There's no like resident parking only. We don't have that.
Right. Yeah,
And
but
that
that,
also would apply to things like landscapers and plumbers and everybody else.
right.
The maintenance.
There's no way to,
So what do they do? What do
Segregate
people do on Brookline and Lindbergh?
Brookline typically hasn't been an issue, like I said, because it's more of a cut through to Greendale and there's curbage in place where Holland doesn't have curbing. Lindbergh and LaSalle, there is signage in place, and I think that the people just don't utilize the street. I don't know if it's because of the driveway. Yeah, you can see them there on
Inside there, yeah.
either side. I know that this year, so you said you hadn't seen it prior to this year.
But yeah, because, and for one thing, they had signs at either end of the street, which they do now.
Yeah.
There's an officer on the high school side of
No
Webster.
drop off.
Well, it doesn't, yes, no, do not enter.
Right, okay.
You can't enter from Manning. go
Right,
to-
they pull the sign out.
Yeah, but
Um,
they just,
yeah.
it's just there from,
Right,
I don't know, 7:45, 7:30
Yeah,
to
yeah.
8:15 or something like that. And then it goes away until 2:30
so
and it comes back. So,
You can
I have a
usually roll by
theory
the
that
scroll
there was a giant, we heard it here actually at one point, there was an issue with students parking at Memorial on Rosemary. And there was a big push to get them not to do that from the school, from the police. Maybe they got smart and not to your advantage, but they found a new space to park and do that. So it could be, it corrected itself after some effort on Rosemary Street. I can reach out to our school's SRO, the school administration and see if we can put a message out about now Holland and that surrounding area. It would be more of a courtesy because there isn't the signage in place. There's nothing legally preventing them from doing it, but we could put a courtesy reminder out.
what about in the winter when snow removal?
Unless there's a snow emergency in place, people can still park on the street. People typically don't because of that factor. But again, Tom, unless I'm
Except they're
correct,
overnight.
yeah,
Yeah.
overnight,
It's just
right,
overnight.
right.
Yeah.
Can you
'Cause that-
take it if they're parked in the
Wrong direction, yeah.
That's insurance too.
Isn't there
Yeah, but it's not a big.
I don't know, tickets are.
in town?
I think it's only metered
Parking
spots.
tickets for kids.
Yeah, there's no complete blanket 2-hour regulation, no.
Oh, there isn't.
Yeah, it's metered spots and any sign. There are some
Yeah,
certain
I mean,
signs.
I guess I'd just be curious. Holland Street's probably the shortest ladder street. All the others, like Powers go through,
Right.
Brookline goes
Sure.
through, Lindbergh goes through, but Holland doesn't go anywhere.
But if we were to put up, or, you know what I mean?
Well,
And
I
that's
know.
the thing, and it's,
I mean, then that,
it would be unfortunate.
The other side is too, because we have an officer whose parents live on one of those streets. I don't know if it's comfortable with me giving it, but when some of these changes were put in effect to help drop off and pick up, what used to be a quiet street for them shifted the issue to their street. And now they're upset that what was not a problem is now a problem. So by doing it on Holland, do we now push it down to, I'm losing my street. But
Powers is the next one.
well,
But
yeah, that's too far
good,
down.
that's
Nobody's gonna
far
walk from Powers, but,
No, but
but
they-
yeah.
down.
So,
Now,
okay.
and the kids,
Yeah.
it's major traffic
Right.
for pedestrian, the kids to school and after school, and now they're cutting through
Hemlock
Manning
Gibson.
and Hemlock, and that's where they're getting picked up. That's where the,
If I could, are we seeing a significantly greater number of vehicles of students driving themselves than in the past? Is that part of what's happening here? I mean, pre-COVID, post-COVID.
I'm guessing.
Yeah,
yeah, I would think.
yeah. More
Maybe
kids
more
are
parents
having
are working
access to
home
vehicles
today.
earlier.
I don't
More kids dropping their, more parents dropping their kids off too. The
Oh.
elementary schools. Higher volume at the schools.
There's less, I could be wrong. I think there's less walking.
Yes.
I walk from Brookline at Manning to Pollard, but I don't know if people do that anymore.
So I think, I mean, if it's something that you want to, pursue, I would advise getting with your neighbors and having them sign a petition saying that they would agree to.
But I don't think,
I'm just
I
saying,
don't
that's
think any of us are gonna agree to that. I mean, that really was one of my questions. How do we identify?
You can also do
Service.
2 hour. You can do 2 hour.
Well, that would be helpful. I mean, I know that we're having some construction done. I don't know when, but in the spring or the whatever, and there'll be, vehicles there. I just know that that's gonna happen.
Right.
So what
For-
Lindbergh has is it's date limited as well. So it's during school time of year.
Yeah, it
And
does
then
say, I
there's-
did drive by today and it says like September 1 to June 30 or
Yeah,
something like that.
So it
But,
wouldn't apply.
I mean, certainly a 1 or 2, a 2 hour would be certainly better, but given what you're saying here, I don't want it to be no parking at all. School hours would be helpful, but then again, if you need service or.
The other thing is, if you need service, and the town and the committee don't sanction it, but if you need service and you need to reserve those spots, if you happen to have a couple of orange cones in your garage that you had to put out to save the spot, probably would, students wouldn't park there.
Or a chair, like they do in.
Yeah.
Right.
That's Rebecca's suggestion. It's not coming from me.
It's not official team action.
There might be a couple bylaws against that.
Yeah, I mean, I have a friend coming to visit tomorrow. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my car in front of our house so that she can pull into the driveway. Because otherwise,
That's what.
she can't.
So a question, and again, maybe not
It's
for
a
this
pain in the
committee,
neck.
maybe it's transportation, maybe it's something for the schools, but we have such a confusion of people in the school department, everybody who professes to be so environmentally conscious here. Maybe the school department needs to could be persuaded to do a push for carpooling, for less single occupant vehicles being brought to the school. I mean, it sounds like we have a larger problem in the whole area surrounding this high school with what amounts to single occupancy vehicles. And maybe get the school department to push the environmental angle and say, what are you doing?
Town meeting did adopt a climate emergency, and the school committee should rightfully fall in sync with the town meeting's wishes, and that would be something that would be, I think you should recommend. Can I sign you down for talking to them?
Well, I guess to that point, like it just clicked to think about a lot of the stuff we hear is surrounding around schools.
Yeah.
Does the school committee have a spot on this committee, or is
on
that something
on the new committee that's going to be formed?
on the new committee?
There is school committee
I
representation.
just thought
We the planning board representation, school committee, like we're trying to hit everyone. But yes.
All right, well,
So
It's a
I'm sorry
timeline.
we're
It's
unable to kind of
obviously more than just
we're limited in what we can do.
right,
So,
Right.
right. Well,
Okay.
I mean, it was
will-
worth, finding out, and
And I will reach out to our school SROs and see if they can work with the school admin and pushing out a message just reminding me to be.
Mostly more. If they have to park there, don't park in the middle of what could be 2 spots, which is, I really wanted to put a sign on somebody's car. I mean, like, you know, in front of 2 of the houses. It was.
Well, they are supposed to, like, there's a whole thing around a process for getting a permit. So juniors are allowed to have cars in a certain lot, seniors are allowed to have cars in another lot. And then there are other places people tend to park at the library. But I think it's not unreasonable to ask the superintendent or the principal to send out a note. It doesn't mean it will work. I don't know if you all get the superintendent's email, but the superintendent just had to send out a note saying that kids are behaving badly in town on early release days, and had to send a note saying, can you get your kids to behave in town on early release days? So sounds like there's some general.
And I think, you know, I was obviously being tongue in cheek, but I think there is something to Bob's suggestion to, you know, have the schools try to help environmentally, you know, carpooling. Sure. It is something that can, you know, reduce carbon emissions.
It just seems to me that we have the problem. We're kind of saying it's at Rosemary, it's a Memorial, it's here, it's there. So okay, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let's get the arms around the whole problem, which is that high school kids are driving cars to school alone.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, pick up 3 friends.
Right.
You know, whatever.
The environmental angles are good angles. Right.
So I'm sorry.
Yeah, but the adults all agree with that. I don't know. They're teenagers.
Thank you very much.
Especially when they get their
Thank
license, right? Well, thanks for listening.
Thank you very much.
Go get some phones.
Yeah, well, I like that.
That's not an official recommendation.
Right. Yeah.
Congestion problem, traffic pattern outside Hersey, Oscar Mertz. I know we have Kathy Mertz as well on online here. I don't know if she's she going to speak or
no.
Oh, okay, just answer.
Hi, everyone. So this has been going on. I've been commuting for 27 years at Hersey, and I sent a sketch. I did a crude sketch, and I sent this issue to a woman, Deborah, and I do not remember her last name, but I think she was part of either the police or traffic group at Town Hall, I think, but maybe the name resonates with someone here. But so the arrows that you see in that aerial were painted as a result of, I think, when I sent my note in, and they were trying to control, I suppose, the traffic, create a one-way flow. So this is we'll call this a first world problem. This is not a life-threatening problem, but this is what occurs every evening. You see basically a cluster of cars that are going in opposite directions and crossing each other. So you have this mishmash of people who approach. That's 38 feet for the curb cut, so you could get 2 out and 1 in, but nobody really treats it like that. So people who are making a left are on the right side, and they're coming from the right side. And then there are also cars that want to take a right that come from the left. So that's the idea here, is that the cars that are red are right, and the cars that are black are going left, just so you guys understand my graphics. So this is the existing pattern, and it's somewhat challenging just because it takes forever to get through. And so my thought was, and when I had sent my sketch in, this is basically the bottom left side was what I sent in as a diagram to say, basically we have this crossing right now that basically creates a challenging conflict of people going in different directions and crossing each other. So my thought would be some very clear signage and a very clear 2-lane paint job in the top left diagram, so that people know that they're actually 2 turning movements, and so that they're not going to just go and sit in the middle and then make a left or a right and make that sort of clean that up, so people know that there are 2 choices to make. Maybe that will start to create a little bit of a pattern, thought pattern in people to think that they might not prep to make their turns. And in an ideal world, you'd love to have something like that, which basically flows rights and lefts. What it does mean is, and everybody, as you probably know, parks closer to the station in the morning. So it fills up from the station out towards to the north.
Do you mind if I ask a question of the town before you go too much in depth
Oh,
here.
sure.
Because I think we might have a jurisdictional problem because this lot is the MBTA's property, so we don't have jurisdiction over it. So any suggestions you make to us, even though we think they're phenomenal, we don't have we can't act on it. So is the lip of it the town, or is this all MBTA?
This is MBTA's property. I'm not sure if we actually did.
Somebody did those arrows, but maybe it was related. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, so Ryan might be a good reach out to make sure, see if he's done any paint striping on there.
We used to do striping and even paving in some MBTA lots, but several years ago, that was given back over to MBTA.
With some land swap situations.
I think the town might have striped the sidewalk across the drive as part of striping Great Plain Ave, but that, my memory is that was it.
Yeah, that's possible.
Isn't this intuitive? I'm so curious about why can't drivers figure this out on their own?
I don't know.
I've been asking myself that question every day. For what it's worth, I am right there.
I could put little cards on everybody's window, just like that. I could
just from Duncan comes up here and makes a loop here to the back the other way.
So
Further complicating the whole thing.
That doesn't happen in rush hour.
I did that earlier today.
And there's only one way in and one way out. Is that it?
Yeah, on this lot, that's the entry, and then on the other lot, the south lot's just a 60-footer that goes down next to the tracks. So that's easy.
Yeah, they're forced.
This is the one that creates the most challenge.
You give more than one choice, and then they.
Yeah. But it is remarkable that people don't think about it. Like the second time that they are in that mess, you think, well, basically, I know I'm going to turn right.
Everybody followed it.
If you see the line of arrows headed into the lot at the bottom of the frame.
Yeah, it's a
the
one-way
problem
loop.
is that people pull out of those slots, and instead of making the loop down and around,
They want to go the
they
quick way.
simply turn towards the top of the lot.
But then they also take a right.
Correct. No, that's what I'm saying.
So they go the shortest distance to the exit, but then they don't.
Yes.
Okay, so basically, thank you guys. I'll see you later.
But I think if you bring, this is great, and you can bring that to the MBTA. But no, I mean,
Do we have a point of contact? Or do I just go ahead and, unfortunately, Paul McMillan is
You
no
know
longer
what?
there.
I can find one because Dave Montgomery from the Transportation Committee. I can find you one. I'll let you know.
Raymond knows.
And yeah,
Right, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think just the fact that you clearly have thought this out and you have something to show them is probably more than most people would have. So,
oh, I like them.
Seems like a very basic solution to a.
Yeah.
yeah.
Can you show the driveway? No, this on Street View?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to, and I mean, the other question was, well, okay, it might affect where I park if I'm going to do this.
Right.
So you might start, so, you know, you can keep going.
Dynamic of the whole.
And that's
Operate.
fine. You'd love to think that people could all train themselves, but then all of a sudden they get a call and they have to go someplace else.
Yeah.
So they take a left or right. So
So
you can't overthink it.
You do park there. You're not a walker.
I park there, yes, regularly enough that
Yeah.
it gets my attention.
I mean, there is an attempt. There's an
So
attempt.
there's the problem. It's 38 feet, but they're only showing 2 lanes out. So all I'm saying is maybe I'll take a bucket of paint. So you didn't hear that.
Again, not a TMAC recommendation,
Right.
just like with the codes.
Yes, but all, you know, that's to me the most logical thing. If people saw that there were actually 2 ways out, a right and a left turn out, then that would start the thought.
Yeah,
But,
the arrow-
but
the arrow going in
refreshing the
and out.
paint will help too.
Yeah.
That will certainly help.
So, okay, thank you. I guess we're good.
Yeah, no.
We're good to move on to another source.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
I'll reach out. I can also reach out to MBTA. I'll get you a contact. Thank you. Our contact we have. So. 7, poor lighting on West Street between Hillside Ave and Crescent Road. Hi. Ron, is that?
Yep.
Yeah. floor is yours, sir.
All right, so this is my first ever meeting to any town meeting, so I'm not prepared, we were talking about it yesterday. So one of the main problems is while we're walking down West Street, right, from, let's say, Trader Joe's, just around here, you can go back to the, can you?
Okay.
Go straight down. Just after the, just after Hillside, right? Just after the ambulance, right? Where you see that on the left-hand side, right out here onwards, it gets really, really dark when you're walking down. Now you might notice, there are some lights on the, there are some street lights. The problem is that they're too dim. So walking this on the left-hand side, it's just really dark. It's really hard to, if you can just pause here for a second, sometimes on the left, it's so narrow. And during winter time when it's raining, we almost slip a couple of times. And one, the street is pretty narrow on the left-hand side. Second, it's really dark. I always have to turn on my flashlight with my phone or something or the other. And when there's somebody else walking, it's even more difficult because you might slip when you, move a little bit on the side. So I don't know what can be proposed. I mean, either two things is increase the number of lights or brighten the street lights that are already present. But from this part to, I guess, Crescent, that's the next one, it is the main problem. Right up to,
There's no street lights.
there are, but they're really dim.
Are these LED lights?
Are they
adjustable?
Really dim.
They're adjustable.
It's dark. I
really
walk at night between Rosemary and the senior center. It's dark.
It's really dark.
So these are
It's dark.
adjustable
It's all
lights.
around.
I'm not sure what level we have them on right now. I believe they're 60-watt LED.
And as I was,
20,
I just see two
here. Well, I have from
There's one right off at Crescent, and then there's one right at
Hillside. From
There's nothing
Hillside.
between
and I can
there.
tell you they don't really help.
1,
much.
2,
There's
3.
one- Yeah. And
Wait,
these lights are dimmer
Crescent.
than on average compared to the other street lights that you will see.
Yeah. So from Crescent, there's 2, and then there's one at the intersection of Hillside Avenue.
Mhm.
So 1, 2, 3. So
And the
there's
problem is between them.
3. So these are not pedestrian scale lights either. So they're not really meant. They're meant for the roadway, not for the sidewalk. So they're up high.
Yep,
and
they're pretty
and
high
They
and
point and they point at the road.
it doesn't help much.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are a couple of times where I've seen even people almost not slip, but like even I've slipped almost once. It gets really dangerous to walk on the side, slippery, you name it, right? And the path on the left is pretty narrow as well. So to add up with that, the trees.
I guess my first question is this the right forum for that? I mean, I serve as a portal, certainly.
Yeah.
I'm kind of not sure.
I'm not sure if this is the exact right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
For this issue,
a DPW, yeah, definitely right.
it's DPW kind of thing.
Right.
As far as
Have you tried doing C-Click Fix? The website C-Click Fix?
I wouldn't recommend it. I mean,
Thank you, thank you.
is the right person.
Sorry, Tom.
I do it all the
But the
time.
question is important. So here, what I was just saying to Bob is that I do think, so now, how many years ago exactly did we change out all the lights? 8, 10?
No,
No.
2019.
Maybe completed.
Really? Maybe
Oh,
complete it.
oh.
Start, when did it
When it
start?
Oh,
It
okay.
started
All right.
long.
It was only a 6-month. So we've done complete change outs probably twice over the last 15 years. But we usually will fix one light at a time. But this case, we went from incandescent to high pressure sodium in like 2009. And then from high pressure sodium to LED in 2019, which it was finished in 2019.
There is a pedestrian darkness problem across the town. And so I do think that it's the reason that it should be here is that it's pedestrian safety and it impacts sidewalks and crosswalks. And so what I was just saying to Bob is I live, everybody knows where I live. I live at the corner of Mark Tree and Oak. And so Mark Tree today, I took dinner to my neighbor. I live literally in the brick house, the corner of Mark Tree and Oak. I took dinner to my neighbor tonight, pitch black from Mark Tree to Henderson on it, pitch black. So it's a problem. I think it's so whether we just have a log or we say, you know, to save you this seat clip fix, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well,
But
the design of these lights are not intended for pedestrians, they're for the traffic, it's for the roadway. So we do have pedestrian scale lights, and that's, you'll see in the downtown and in the heights. So the poles are decorative light structures in the parking lots as well.
And is it possible for these lights to be adapted to pedestrian lights? Like the height we reduce, or the lights be more brighter, or different lights?
We can brighten the lights to help. LEDs are more focused, and they're not, the spread is not as wide.
So these are currently LED?
These are LED lights, yeah.
But they're also much higher than normal.
The only alternative is to see if we can add, if there's enough room on a pole to add a light. And again, they're designed for the driver to make sure he can see, that they can see, pedestrians. Unfortunately, it's not for the pedestrian sidewalk. That's how it's designed, unless it's lower. Yeah.
I think we have to be careful with setting a precedent here due to the fact there are several other committees or issues that will come into play with light pollution. How many people want lighting? Because what is the purpose of the lighting? Like, I live in a rural community, it's a farm community, we don't have lights anywhere. It's just the nature of the community. So I guess you have to ask, what is it that one particular spot? If the entire town needs to be illuminated, there's going to be a lot of outside issues with people now in their homes upset that the light's too bright while they're trying to watch that.
That's why they switched in the
Right.
Brightness.
Right, because we get a lot of complaints, the police get a lot of complaints that their neighbor's spotlight is pointed in the wrong direction. So there's a lot, it might seem like a finite, simplistic issue, but there are far greater effects that this would have.
I think there's an argument to be made that it is close to the train station. Right.
And the senior center.
And the senior center.
And the worst intersection, one of the worst intersections.
But there was just an accident a few days ago, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like.
Yeah.
So you don't even have to have it like, all the way down the road, maybe just certain feet or yards in between.
We would have to see if a light would fit on a pole, and it does bring up the, I do get complaints, too bright, too dim. I have neighbors fighting over, they don't even know they're fighting over, and someone wants it lighter. I even have like, some of them don't want LEDs at all.
One of the things with the LEDs, as he was pointing out, that we've run into is that they are much more highly focused. You even see it on the vehicles themselves. The LED light has much more of a spot effect. And you now don't have the side scatter. The problem with that is you then lose the peripheral vision, the light scatter. So I think the switch probably from the high pressure sodium to the LEDs probably reduced the scatter, which served a secondary effect of lighting the sidewalk. And we may have lost that in the change. I'm just going to suggest that as a first step, can the lights that are there be turned up?
I'll see what level
there's
it is.
2 or 3 lights there, if they can just be adjusted upward and see if that is sufficient improvement.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Should that be a motion?
Don't you have to meet certain light standards? I don't know, because it seems to be, if those are so focused, it can be a spot of darkness. Maybe you can explain it. I don't know if that's.
Our standards were, I believe it was every 400 in a straightaway. I think it was 400 feet in distance, and it didn't really indicate how many lumens. I think it was maybe 4,000 lumen every 400 feet, and then at every curve.
So it meets your standards. So what's out there meets your standards.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
So what you're saying,
I'm not sure how scientific these standards are, other than like, here's our policy.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So maybe we are violating the protocol almost if we're going to go in, well, unless we have reasons be near the station or near the senior center. I mean, then you have a reason, then you can do them. But otherwise, I mean, if you're having exceptions, then everybody will come out.
I do get this a request like this for more lights every once in a while, and we so we'll take a look at it. It's not a priority for right now. We'll take a look at it, see if we can fit another light on the pole. So there may be opportunity, but then again, it may not help with the pedestrian walkway. You really need lower lights, in the walking path, like you would see at the heights.
Yep. So if this solution doesn't work, increasing brightness, then we move on to.
Then I'll check this. Yeah, I'll check to see if we can fit another arm on the pole.
More lower
for another pole. Yeah, I have to see what other poles we have over there because I see 3.
Yeah, I think what you have looks about right.
Yeah.
That kind of looks right.
The hillside, and then there's one before Crescent. Yeah. And you're saying right in the stretch here, or maybe
right in that stretch, and even here this stretch as well, but mainly this stretch, because I think then what happens is when you start going downhill, you get some of the light gets from you can at least when you're walking downhill it helps in the evening, right? When you're going back home, you have some of the light from the other lights. So the main problem is here, but this would also help. Would also help. Right. Let's say both.
I can see if we can turn up the lights first.
Okay. That's. Do we need some formality to it?
I'll make a motion if it helps.
Rebecca, would you like a second?
Motion to see if we can turn the lights on.
I would love to.
Rebecca seconds the motion. Any discussion on the table? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes. So obviously just figure out.
I'll try to do that right as soon as the meeting's over. I'll try to do that. So if you notice anything, let me know. No, they didn't put an app in my phone.
Well, you have a remote
upstairs.
Upstairs. I didn't know if you had to do it at the fixture or if you could do it remotely.
So I think the next the last item that we have here,
most of them are right as they could be, but is just kind of to continue the discussion. I think we're going to have an ongoing discussion with regards to process, etc. Just to give you an update, next Monday there is a meeting. I may or may not be able to attend because I'm going to be overseas, but we'll see if I can log in at midnight. We're going to have a meeting with the members of the TPRC, which we're looking at a second committee establishment, basically another iteration of the Transportation Committee, and then a further iteration of TMAC, one being a forward-facing tactical. It would have its own budget that would be able to handle similar to what we're doing now, radar, speed signs, et cetera, but then also having another committee that looks more at speed management, longer term strategic transportation holistic planning. So I think Kate and Karis took what the committee had brought to them back in August and or it was even early July, and have brought some feedback, and they're going to present that to the committee next Monday in hopes that we'll go to the next select board meeting if approved, and then we would figure out tactically how what the membership would be, and going forward with each of the committees. Are there any questions on that?
Where we were looking to streamline some of the way we proceed, will that group be setting policy for us that we'll act on? Or I guess I'm saying, are we putting the cart before the horse? Will they set policy that will then guide this committee? Or are we feeding how we'd like to see up to them, or with you? That's a
really good question, Lieutenant. And okay. I actually, since Marianne was supposed to get Kelly last night, the potential committee, basically, I haven't seen what Kate and Karis had submitted, and I talked to Marianne yesterday, and she said, "Oh, I'm going to get it to you because you'll be in Switzerland." But I haven't gotten it yet, so I can't answer your question because that has the document that says what each of the charters are of the two committees. But I believe that there will still be a forward-facing committee that that is empowered to do, and I still think the radar speed signage criteria would still come from that. I'm not sure. That's the thing.
Well,
that's a good
so
point.
hopefully by next
Yes,
meeting it'll be
yes.
good, because then some of those things we wanted to potentially implement, we'll know if
Yes.
we should be, or if it'll be
Agreed.
coming from
Yeah,
a-
somebody
Agreed.
other-
Agreed.
The food chain. Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's, and then yeah, so that's that. I was going to do but to your point, we can table it till January. But the criteria for radar speed signage, I did find the Federal Highway Transportation Academic Study from 2012 that did radar speed signage criteria, which talked about both location at specific criteria as well as general criteria, where it's that one. Yes, to go over to the right, the spreadsheet to the right there. So there's the location specific guidance.
Yeah.
And then there's just general guidance, which talks about both a median speed versus the 85th percentile. But we would use 85th because we do traffic studies. But if it was close to a school, if it was close to this, if there was, there is essentially criteria here that we could use to filter the request through, so that we have some standard to go on, so we don't end up having 30 radar speed signs in 10 years. Right.
But so what about also the study that was done a few years ago that was, we don't know where it landed in terms of all of the speeds town-wide, and
yes, it was
that we were wondering where that was and what the process was and when all of that was going to be implemented, just because there are areas of town that should have lower speeds that don't.
Agreed.
It's a lot that hasn't changed that we've been wondering.
It is interesting because I did notice, and I never even knew it was implemented, but there's a safety zone in Needham. Never knew that was put in. Yes, there is actually at the bottom of where Great Plain turns to the
Greendale,
where Greendale turns
corner.
the corner, and actually you hit a sign by, was that what's that field?
You had to do that.
Yeah,
Perry Park.
Perry Park.
Yeah, Perry Park.
So there is a speed zone
Both.
there. We're actually said there was a 20-mile-an-hour speed zone.
Yeah.
Which is enactment of the one of the recommendations of the GPI studies was potentially to do speed zoning.
But there's one.
Correct.
Right,
At least that I'm aware of, there's only one.
There's a list of multiple proposed locations, and there's one.
Correct. Okay.
Right, but there were a lot of proposals, and this is years ago.
Yes.
So granted, COVID happened and all of that, but there were a lot of things proposed that just never happened. It was a lot of money, it was a lot of time.
I did read, I read it, all of it at one point, but the radar speed signs were actually not mentioned in that study as a control. There were other speed tables. There were reducing, there was reducing crossing by either doing redesigns, which I know there's going to be a redesign down on Highland Ave at some point, potentially, but there are, that GPI report did mention about, kind of bringing in the bump outs, especially down, down by the high school and that area.
But again, a timetable.
Right, and there it's
and who owns it and when's. There's some degree of accountability, I guess, is kind of what I'm hoping for.
and that will be probably where these two committees will be.
So
we'll fall into the
you're setting up like a traffic count and policy, traffic.
that would be wonderful. To actually have a speed management plan,
They
comprehensive.
have it. The town of Brooklyn has it.
Yes, and
So there was a huge consulting effort. There was an outside firm that was brought in to do a complete study. They came back with a lot of recommendations.
This is the town of Brooklyn?
No.
And here,
Did all of this,
Oh, really?
but it was never implemented. It was just, it seems like it
Well,
was.
For the RRFBs that were added, there was the 10 high
The
hazard.
pedestrian safety,
Yeah.
it was a pedestrian safety plan. And so we did a lot of RFPs. We did
Yes.
the safety zone for Beaufort Road you were just talking about. I think we covered most of them, most of the areas. There's a few that were off the table. That was completed like just in 2020. Yeah. I think Ryan just finished up all the improvements at Perry Park area.
Right.
Was it last spring? It was last spring.
Yeah. And do you know what the status of the Highland Ave? I know there was obviously the questionnaire that went out. Yeah.
We have some really concept plans. So we have, I think we have at least 2 sets of different plans. Well, right, two.
Oh,
two
yeah.
different- that is, yeah, that's a few years out.
Ryan would know more about that.
TEC is continuing with the design.
The changes in which we, with the tip, where more of the, you need to have the design further along in order to see. I believe we're chasing that target.
Which location?
And that all the way from
all of
from
that.
Webster,
All of that.
yeah, Webster Street all the way, yeah.
Oh,
and
okay.
each of the intersections, each of the signals, each of the crosswalks, etc. So that'll all.
It's parking. I think one of the things we're looking at is a parking plan. Yeah.
There's a parking
Study
going on that will impact which design elements are chosen for the Highland Ave project.
So that's a bit of homework for everybody, by the way. Do the parking study. I posted it all.
Oh, yes, yeah. So there's a survey.
There's a survey that went out.
See it.
Oh, yeah, I'll send you those.
Yeah, thank you for reminding us. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember this committee should fill out the parking survey.
Okay.
So I think instead of having to go through this criteria, you do bring up a good point about the status of where we are with these 2 committees and the future of both TMAC and Transportation Committee and its future iterations. So we could table that till the next meeting, so we'll have a little more clarity on what our charge is.
Sure.
Because
I didn't diverge bubble one.
no, you did.
You
Thank you. I get that. You kind of did deflate it. What do we have any? I know you wanted to talk about some website improvements, possibly with regards to some.
I need to formulate that.
Okay.
So perhaps something for the new year.
Okay. Anyone have further notes of discussion? Points of discussion. Oh yes. Do you want to get customer?
So I went to the website of the town of Brookline, and they have what they call crosswalk and design guidelines, which they did in 2018. I did some minor editing, and I don't know really what the town does with regard to policies. But I mean, let's say if there was a standard for you have just two lines versus let's say a ladder type crosswalk versus a crosswalk whereby you have a not speed table, where you have a raised table and things like that. I started editing about it and just see if standards are somewhat up to date. But I think I need to help someone in town who can help me with looking up, let's say, standards. I can look up in the MUTCD stuff, but just to get the overall sense. And so I was wondering maybe if I have maybe a couple of hours for someone doing the town, doing whatever, and go over it, or maybe with someone else on the committee.
Well, we have the GPI, which is very similar to what he's looking at too, regarding on where to, depending on the speed of the roadway, how to
the criteria for the
pedestrian
crossing.
crossing.
Volumes, characterization, all these kind of things. You have unsignalized crosswalks, marked crosswalks, mid blocks. You get stop controlled, yield controlled, uncontrolled approaches. So it's just a little slog, but it probably should be fairly easy to do. So
you're talking about creating something for Needham like that.
Yes.
That's wonderful, because what you're saying is there's a study, but we don't have, that wasn't turned into a policy.
Right.
Because the thing is, but if you have a policy, you can wave it around to a petitioner and saying, we are going by policy. This is what we're using. This is what we have using.
But I also wonder if we, I mean, I haven't even seen the study that was done, and I sit on a committee. So there's also this question of whether it's in Brookline or the other neighboring communities where they have raised crosswalks. And there are safety provisions that even if you can't have a stop sign, that they seem to be strategies that we don't employ immediately. So I wonder, as you're looking at that, if there are things that we could be doing that we're not doing because we just haven't done them, but there is precedent in other towns that would allow us to employ them here without having to get into issues around rolling stop signs or other things if there's a bump. I mean,
well, speed tables, I know that Rain's finally, or he said, and I think DPW is open to speed table implementation, figuring out the right way to do it, but that is a control that is known to work very well. It doesn't have some of the same issues that speed bumps do. You know, both from emergency vehicles, landscape trucks, all these other, you know, variables that there have been people that have put speed bumps in towns and then removed them because there was too much noise. But speed tables are I think a good device that we could use to potentially control speed on certain areas.
so when you say a speed table, you're talking about a more gradual raised.
Something similar to where the Riverdale School in Dedham is.
Yeah.
It's within everyone's
Yes,
experience.
that's what I always
That's a
think
speed
about.
That's a great
Yes.
point out down.
Where you're
So,
going toward Nobles, but you go to the left.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
just to
Yes,
give a
thank
quick idea, because in Boston, they have had some, particularly down in the Jamaica Plain neighborhood, they did a whole neighborhood-wide sort of thing there. Congruent with one of the schools there. Some of them have been removed. And a lot of it has to do with he mentioned landscaping vehicles. But one of the things about it is they tend to cause, get at any sort of speed, they cause the vehicle to bounce. And now all the equipment and tools and everything are going like this. And you get it, it sounds like, you know, the bucket drummer. And you would end up with, we have at least ended up with some neighborhood complaints about increased vehicle noise as a result of speed tables or raised crosswalks. Just as one example of it's not all positive.
Oh, agreed.
You know,
Right, so you'd want to be selective. There
Yes.
might be places where it's worthwhile, and also might take maybe there's a PR component to this too. I mean,
No, and I think like we need to take advantage of doing a speed zone, you know, by the high school, because you can't do a school zone because the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has stupid laws, and you can't have. I'm sorry.
So nice.
But it's true. I mean, a high school is a school, right? That's common sense. But you know, I think that there are some.
Why can't you do that? What's the-
High schools, you can't have
It's
schools. on
specific-
are not-
Grade.
It specifically said it's up to grade 8 in codified in. It's stupid. But anyways, but some of the schools that have like 7, 8, 9 or something like that, you know, they're allowed because they can compass grade 8, whatever it is. But
To that same positivity, I have a very, very informal poll that the crosswalk modifications on the Highland Ave side of the town hall people are enjoying.
Okay.
So,
yeah, got blown over. That was my C-clip fix, by the way. I did get blown over for the wind.
By town hall and Walgreens.
Yeah.
There's the orange. Yeah.
So on that note, I have 3 things that I know we're getting close to, you know, but I do have 3 things that I know, but I think
It's 7 o'clock.
they're quick. Yeah, I know. They're quick items. One of them is related. But yes, I thank you for that. I think that it is doing well. I think we need to do it on the other side. That's even a more dangerous crossing because of where the cars are parked. Rain and I actually did a walkthrough of that, and it was that's a very dangerous crossing. The one on the other side of town hall, Chapel Street. Because of the cars are parked there, and then you actually have those red banners that say like crossing, and they actually are blocking the actual mid-block crossing sign. But it's pretty. And also the crossing is done in the granite as opposed to, you know, what the manual uniform. Yeah, and it's not. There's no warnings from the top. Anyways, the lighting at the crosswalk in front of Camellas. We were investigating a possibility. Yeah. And I know that
I haven't heard back from Wellesley on this. It's something I was actually thinking about today.
Okay.
So they were going to look into a light that you can like, I think, you
I think that
It was
was
actually-
I
yeah.
suggested
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was direct, an additional light on that was
Yeah.
more directive.
Yeah.
Okay, so
They said they had one, I can't remember the location in Wellesley. Similar to what I was looking for. So I'll just have to follow back up with them on, can you provide us information?
thanks. I'd sent an email to some folks regarding an issue that about a 25-mile-an-hour regulatory speed sign to be posted in a 25-mile-an-hour speed zone that's already there, but essentially it's a reminder speed zone for traffic that's coming off of Central Ave onto Great Plain Ave westbound. There is a 25-mile-an-hour sign that's before that intersection, closer to the city, it's the center of town, 25. But you have all this traffic that comes out and goes toward Wellesley, but then isn't aware that's 25 miles an hour until the end. And actually there's a crosswalk, one of which was the higher hazard crosswalks that was listed in the GPI study, that is in that 25-mile-an-hour zone. And then right afterwards, it changes to 30. So I wanted to see, I hadn't heard any back, but I wanted to see is that it's not a regulatory change because it's already a 25-mile-an-hour. Is there any way that we can post a regulatory speed sign? Like as soon as you take that right
supplementary speed limit sign, really.
It's the what?
Supplementary.
Yeah, all it is to, and I looked up it is allowable to remind people if there is a if there's an additional street that brings traffic to an area within a speed zone, you're able to put a secondary sign up. So it's just to remind people that who do come off Central on either direction and go out west, that this is a 25-mile-an-hour zone.
So where is this in Central?
It's Central and Great Plain. So it's a little bit further down Great Plain, probably like a block, like where the opposite the church. Somewhere, as soon as your cars are taking a right, they say, "Oh, I'm on a 25."
So you're coming down Central into the 25, into the middle of a 25-mile-an-hour zone on Great Plain.
Correct.
But there's nothing that tells
There's
you
nothing that
because
tells you
the
that.
sign is to your right and you're going left.
And how do you enforce that too? You know what I mean? Because you don't know where they came from.
It's first time hearing of the speed limit 25 there.
Oh, because if you actually go beforehand, go by the end of Noise.
Yeah.
Or probably a little bit further back than that. That's actually a 20. There's a 25. So those cars know it's 25. And then you come around that curve where the crosswalk is. That's a pretty yeah. And I've known some people who have had some near misses there with crossing. So I don't know if that's possible just to do that. And then there was the last item I have is this crossing that's not really a crossing every Sunday at the church of right by the library. They put a barrel out with a yield sign.
Yeah.
But there used to be a crosswalk probably 15 years ago. They had the curb cutouts for it.
We talked about this before.
At the library. At the
At the
library.
library.
back part,
It's for the church. They go into the library. I don't know about it's more of like general counsel needs to figure this out. Are we putting this is an uncontrolled crossing that's suddenly not there. It's a part-time uncontrolled crossing.
Yeah. Yeah, so this was kind of one of
Tony's fault, yeah.
Yeah, where somebody marked out a crossing years ago and it was without curb cuts. And I think this is going back to the 90s. Tony had them remove it or never restripe it. But when they did the library, they put the ramp there. So kind of sent Tony into
I'm just thinking from a tort perspective, someone gets hit going across there, and then it's not marked. It's just a barrel that says yield to pedestrians and crosswalk, and there's no actual crosswalk there.
Oh,
they have a barrel with the sign. They bring out
the church puts
it out during Sunday because they use the traffic for the. I mean, it's a community outreach.
So back in
like you just said, it's a community.
I wanted to mention that it's something that.
So back in 2008, they wanted a curb cut so that people can be dropped off. And so we looked at it. I think Ryan put one in on their side.
Got it. So now it matches.
So now it matches.
There's a ramp if there's because the church has steps.
Yes.
Right there.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So you put the ramp. What's the point? They have to go around
anyways,
the building.
So, yeah. And everything is there that it's a crosswalk, but it was in the GPI study for inventory of uncontrolled crosswalks that was not listed in the appendix C. But nonetheless, so either we're listing it as an uncontrolled crosswalk, treating it as such, or
just to maybe lessen the hazard there too. Tony was going to do this before his passing, but if we could bring it back up, that same section in front of the library is very wide, and we have a big issue. Well, we see an issue with people pull side to side, but they both are continuing straight. So now people jockey for position, and they're either trying to accelerate to go to Dunkin' Donuts, or they scoot into Sudbury Farms. I think the quick fix was, is there a way to paint to make it one lane? So almost where I'm going with this with the crosswalk is from back by the library's first entrance. Is there a way to kind of paint out almost a straight line? Yeah, like a fog line.
Exclusive right turn lane. Then goes into Rosemary. Because then that it's pro forma.
Yeah, you're right. There are
I don't know if it's regulation. I don't think it's wide enough for 2 lanes, but can we put a fog line to make it 1? Or something along those lines. Dude.
Is there right now, is there a right turn to Rosemary?
There's nothing.
It's nothing. It's just really, it's a really wide.
Very wide, and people jockey.
I was even thinking if you can't, then you do like a common lane where, you know what I mean? You actually go, 2 feet out or 3 feet out and bring a lane all the way down.
Right.
Yeah. And if it's not wide enough for an actual dedicated right turn only lane.
Yeah.
Hopefully these video, we're even seeing it.
That's the stuff there.
Yeah, so right there, you get people canter to the right and left, and then they try and fight to go straight or cut into Sudbury Farms.
Yep.
Was there enough width in the road?
So that's the thing. I don't know what the actual, or is it going to be one of those situations where you have on Chapel Street and Oak, where it's not actually widened for a dedicated lane?
Yeah.
We do it.
It's a lane and a half, and everybody kind of tries to give themselves enough space to get around the guy who takes 15 minutes to make the right turn into
so you have someone that doesn't, the residents and the non-residents.
Yeah.
So perhaps we'll bring this up when Rain's here as well, and we can talk about that in January. Sure. I think that'd be a prudent idea. All right.
This is in TEC scope too, to take a look at the tip.
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. So, anyways, that's all I have. Unless I need to have anything else. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
I was entertaining it. What?
You made it.
Yes, you made it.
By default, you made it.
All right, perfect. All in favor? Aye. Adjourn.
Happy holidays, everybody.